Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a while since I actually made a review. So I actually recorded this earlier and I feel like I had to redo it just because I was a little unenthusiastic about it. And I probably should better myself if I want to improve the way I do this, right? So I'm gonna consider this a milestone because I recreated my IMDb account. I wanted to reorganize all the films that I've been watching and I had to redo the entire list basically. So I managed to do like 300 titles, but there was like like almost 2,000 in the previous one. I'm not kidding, almost 2,000 films, animations, TV series that I've watched. But here I am back at 300, and I feel like I would want to just keep how do you call this list as tidy as possible. Focus on the big ones and the ones that I feel really left an impact in me. And as you can see, these are some of the top films in my top rated list. There's hundreds of these, so I'm just gonna leave it in this screen for you guys just to absorb, sort of get an idea of the character that I am, I believe. And I think you really can from just this one shot. This pretty much builds me, right? This is what I am. And I think everyone should have a thing like this, right? You just keep your top 10 films sort of like just kept out in your palm, and anyone asks you, this is who I am. I think that's the thing that we should all have probably someday. So anyway, Blackbird. So as you can see, my rating on this film is already revealed. It's a 3 out of 10. But I noticed a lot of people actually gave this a very high rating. So I'm going to go through a little bit more in depth, and I feel that I should have done that in the previous recording, so here I am again. Taron Egerton is an excellent actor, and I believe the only one who could hold a candle to him in this film was Paul Walter Hauser. Regardless, Taron Egerton does most of the heavy lifting, and a lot of the emotional and intense scenes have him reflecting sort of our feelings and our perception of what this serial killer, played by Paul Walter Hauser, is basically storytelling or just portraying or just trying to imply. So the main big two episodes are 5 and 6, which are the final two episodes of the season. The first four episodes are really slow and boring for me. The characters are not very significant. All the side characters are not very significant. The dialogues are not very strong. And so Taron Egerton basically is playing this guy called James Keen, who's sentenced to 10 years in a minimum security prison. Um, because of some sort of a basic petty crime. But he cuts a deal, with the FBI, as what it says here, in order to be thrown into a maximum security prison for the mentally insane. And his job is basically to get to know this serial killer, to try to become friends with him and get him to confess his crime. So I wish this had some duality in the sense where he actually learned to appreciate the serial killer perhaps in some way, because the serial killer maybe is actually a good guy in a lot of other things. And I thought they'd have that kind of a dynamic. So they do become some sort of friends, but very easily he was thrown off when he tells him the story about him and how he kills his victims, especially these little girls who are his victims. And he just reacts to it, and that pretty much comes to a very quick conclusion. There's also this cop that's often pressing on him, irritating him, and there's this mafia that runs the prison sort of thing. But none of them really affects him. And let me tell you that Mindhunter, which is by Netflix, by the way, I feel is like twice the show, whatever this was, maybe three times, right? Because that one not only showed the character development of this, the FBI agent who's basically evolved from the start to the end of the show. You can see how he's affected, the implications of all these actions and whatever, and it all affects him mentally and how he changes. Like he's supposed to be an FBI agent who's nearly invincible to whatever the world is, throwing at him because he's investigating everything through a psychology standpoint. But you can see how he is really affected by the serial killer he spends time with all the missions he takes on, how he has these panic attacks and he changes, and he's not the same person he is at the end of the show. And their character development, character building not only affects him, but also his supporting cast, the characters around him. And it really tells you that, trying to be involved in the world of a serial killer, and especially something like a maximum security prison for mentally insane is completely going to undo you, right? But Taron Egerton seems to be the exact same person he is from the start to the end. There's really not much that has changed about him except for the fact that he came out of this sort of a dark room that he's thrown into towards the very end, because they just wanted to give him time off, right? So also, he deals with all these mafia, Italian mafia apparently, who has ties to his family and whatever. He spends time with the serial killer, but all of that is fine. There's really nothing to worry about. The prison seems extremely safe. Everyone's in good hands. Um, it's really strange for the most part. He gets threatened by a cop for a lot of the scenes, but nothing really happens. It just feels like deep down it's a very hollow story, all built for, one or two episodes, basically. And I think episode five for me in particular was the one that was most gripping because it is the one where, Larry Hall basically tells the tale of how he kills those little girls. And I think for me that was the most intense. The finale, of course, was just more action packed, I would say, because it's where he breaks character and realizes James Keen is just after his confession, and that sort of ends the whole story. But the other episodes are really slow, really weak, and really hollow. And overall, this is a story that has been told so many ways by so many other shows that for me, it's just not that interesting, not that, you know, gripping or whatever. And I think Mindhunter is just hands down a better show that has done whatever this was trying to do over the course of just one or two episodes and carried on with an amazing season, with so much more to see, so much more to learn with how the FBI, I believe in the 70s or 80s, started to use psychology to actually involve like actual investigators and psychologists to help them investigate on serial killers and try to track down serial killers and try to stop a crime before it continues to happen or happens. I mean, before it continues to happen, I guess, right? Because you never know someone is a serial killer until they've killed the first time or the second time. But anyway, in this case, all of the side characters and the agents really don't do much. They don't do anything almost, right? They're just there. They sort of moral support. They're sort of in the background. They do their own investigation here and there, but it's really boring. In the end, the Larry Hall's brother just confesses to the crime because he feels guilty, and that sort of gets him in a sticky situation. But James Keen, it does eventually learn the truth from Larry, but it doesn't really have any recording proof of it. He's just physical proof that he saw and he knew and he heard it, and they're just gonna have to take his word for it and that sort of thing. So overall, I don't like this, the concept behind this series, and I don't really feel it was built well enough. And the way the character doesn't really get affected by being thrown into maximum security prison is quite insane, right? Can you imagine actually, like, you could be a really hard ass, whatever out in the world, but being thrown into a prison like this with absolutely psychos, I think I don't think you would be the same person. And seeing that Taron Egerton comes out the exact same person as he was when he was thrown in, except for the fact that he was just a little upset hearing Larry Hall's story about how he kills those girls, I think it's just like, nah, it doesn't work for me. It just doesn't seem very realistic in any way, especially a story that's all about trying to tell you a story of a realistic scenario, possibly, where a serial killer is actually killing people out there and this guy needs to go and try to find a confession. Yeah, it's very boring. I think if this was built as a single court case, it would have been absolutely fine. Maybe one or two episodes was great, but the rest of the show is really boring. And I really don't want any more shows like this. This is just not that good. Mindhunter is just like, honestly, why I'm telling you is if you have watched this, you probably understand. And if you have not, I highly recommend you do. Because this show, like, what does he play? Holden Ford, right? The arc that Ford goes through and Tench goes through being his partner, the way they both support each other, get affected, and the way they have these close encounters with serial killer Edmund Kemper in order to get ideas from him, to understand serial killers better so that they can stop other serial killers. Dude, this is just some next level stuff, right? And you got, Dr. Wendy Carr plays also an important character, try to support these two people in their psychological, what do you call this, path, um, which they take to try to hunt down the serial killers. It's just a whole other layer upon layer upon layer sort of story, that builds to a really beautiful character building arc, and it's really intense, really gripping, and I felt that, you know, this show just did not do, you know, anything like that justice in any way. So anyway, this is just my opinion, my point of view. I'm going to rate this a 3. You can probably take it as a 4, maybe a 2. I don't see this as 5. It's not average for me, not at all. This is a bad film, a bad TV series, I would say. But if you absolutely enjoyed it, which I think most people did, well, that's awesome. That's great. But yeah, I don't think this was my cup of tea. But then again, if it does win any awards for being how good it is, I would still be surprised because I honestly think that I looked at this quite objectively. But anyway, that's it for me for this particular series. I do have one more for you, and I want to do a thorough breakdown of it. So yeah, here we go. The second one I watched recently was Pretty Little Liars: Original Sin. I watched this with my wife over like 2 weekends, and we sort of managed to finish it. So first thing is, oh yeah, and we had to wait for a Friday season finale actually, where they released the last 3 episodes in a finale. And I like the sort of the fact that they gave a gap, so people could catch up, so they don't get too many spoilers. But it was an absolutely horrible ending. This was the worst killer I've ever seen in any series, horror, comedy, I don't care what it is. It's the worst killer ever, right? The killer basically is like this Michael Myers built character. He's built like Michael Myers in the sense he's huge. He wears this mask. He has this, weird long hair. He goes around stalking and killing people, and he gets defeated by a pregnant girl. This girl, Imogen Adams. I don't know why whenever I hear her name, I think of a photostat machine. Imogen, I think it reminds me of imaging something. But anyway, she is probably the most innocent character in this entire series. I feel all the other girls are pretty bad shit. Imogen Adams is actually the most innocent among all this. Bailey plays her really well. Um, but she's a pregnant girl that goes investigating throughout the entire series looking for a serial killer, and most of the times by herself. If I was her actual friend, like if my wife was pregnant and she goes around investigating for a serial killer, I would find her and kill her myself, right? Or if I was pregnant, I would hell never put myself and the child I'm carrying in that kind of situation. And if you had a friend who's putting themselves in that situation, please arrest them, right? Because Imogen Adams does most of her investigation by herself in this film. She walks around with her huge ass stomach, right? Not stomach, actually, like the belly. And she goes around investigating clearly as a pregnant woman. She's not afraid of anything. It's terrifying considering how many of her friends actually got raped. She got raped. And this show addresses a lot of sensitivity in the sense where a lot of these school kids are getting raped by schoolboys. And, they both put themselves in bad situations. The girls don't listen to their parents. They get drunk at parties. They get drugged by people. And these boys are absolutely psychos. They drug people in the parties, they rape the girls. Everyone is evil, everyone is bad, everyone's not listening to the parents, everyone doesn't know what the hell is happening. And the parents themselves are not good people either. They have been bullies in the past, they are vile in their own way, they have done bad things. And this really addresses this town with a lot of messed up characters and poor parenting, poor adulthood, poor childhood. Everything is just ruined. And I like how gritty and dark, the characters are built and the concept is, but it amounts to nothing because the investigations in this story feels really hollow. The girls don't even ask the basic question, which is how the killer knows their movement and how they're getting these texts from the killer. They only asked it in the very last episode, I think, or the last 2 episodes, which didn't make sense from the get-go because the first thing you would think is how, like the killer has to be around me for them to know all of these things. And finally, it's revealed who is the person who was texting them. Apparently, it's like, the school principal. And it also doesn't make sense because the principal was not there in a lot of the scenes. So perhaps they could have built a scenario where, when like you go for an exam, you sit in a class, you go for exam, and you have to surrender your phone to the teacher. So perhaps they could have shown it in a scene where they surrender their cell phones, and the teacher takes that as an opportunity to go and tap into their cell phones, use some technology to get a bug in them so that they can actually listen and watch whatever is happening. So that's how they actually know what the characters are doing. That would have worked. That would have helped the plot. That would have made everything clear, showing that these girls were being tracked through their phones from the start, which makes a lot of sense because there's no other way anyone would have seen certain dialogues that they had with specific characters in specific locations. And the killer is sort of like just meat. He's just this huge menacing guy who just kills people, doesn't really think, doesn't really do anything very intuitive. So yeah, it's all about the principal who was planning things up, and that guy just gets beaten up in the last second, doesn't even know how to use a gun. The killer gets stabbed. The killer gets stabbed by a pregnant girl. That's how bad this series is, right? And honestly, as for the character building, it's done really, really well. Every character has their own story, their own character development, their own growth. A lot of them, some of them, like Farron Bryant, was actually intelligent in investigating about Kelly Beasley and whether she's actually her sister or not, because she has a twin apparently. So those are interesting. Minnie actually had some interesting subplots. You know, her hanging out with this fake dad because he's missing his daughter, she's missing her dad. Shady stuff, but interesting. Noah has this thing with the cops. She's sort of like this South Americans being bullied by the cop, and this is an ongoing thing. And Tabitha is sort of this feminist girl who just wants to do a film in the showing a sort of a feminist perspective on the film itself, which doesn't really make sense because when the horror films are made, where the guy goes and stabs the girl or whatever, it's never done from the point where the guy thinks that he's being masochist, right? It's not like the guy thinks that I'm doing this to prove that I'm stronger than women. No, he's just doing it because he wants to just kill people. And it doesn't matter whether you're a woman or a man or whatever, they just do it. Most of the times they kill the women because they know the women are just weaker than them. But it's not because they're women, it's just because they're, weaker, more vulnerable. Maybe they have some sexual attachment to them. That's the sort of the concept. But they're not doing it on purpose in the sense the filmmakers don't take it on purpose to show that, they're being masochist. Get what I mean? Like the killer maybe, but not the director. But in this story, Tabitha wants to take a film as a female director to show that she wants to take the murder from a feminist point of view, to show a point. So it's also an interesting thought process. I never really looked at it that way. But now that I think about it, I think it makes sense because, yes, serial killers do kill for some sort of what do you call this? Sexual pleasure. They kill to show dominance. They kill because they're evil. They want to rape people and all that. But the filmmakers don't take it because of that. The filmmakers take it because that's what happens. The filmmakers don't take it that guy kills girl because I want guy to kill girl. No. Filmmakers take because guy killed girl and that's what normally happens. So I'm taking a horror film about that. But in this one, she just flips the story to say that she wants to show it from a feminist point of view. So because of that, she's making the serial killer a girl or whatever. I think that doesn't have to be a point. You could still make the girl be the killer and kill the guy in whatever horrible way, and everyone would just understand them as a serial killer. It doesn't make it extra feminist in any way. You get me? Like I can totally believe that there's a girl out there who's a serial killer who can totally come with a knife and stab me if I'm not prepared for it. Or even if I'm prepared for it, maybe she can knife fight better than me and she just kills me. It's totally doable, right? It's not like it's not doesn't make any sense, right? There's no way she can kill me with a knife. I'm invincible. No one is. And we all know that for a fact. I mean, at least I hope you do. But so there's all of these side stories going on, all interesting, nothing too questionable. I think all of that is fine. But the main core of the story of Pretty Little Liars is about a serial killer, and that entire core is just absolutely destroyed by the story itself because it amounts to nothing in the end. The serial killer is pathetic. This thing at the end of the poster here is the worst part of the entire story. The serial killer is the worst part of the serial killer story. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The murder, mystery is solved. The parents are absolute morons. The girls are absolute morons. Everyone is just doing their own weird stuff just to drag on to another episode with absolutely no intelligence. It is better than the original Pretty Little Liars, perhaps. And this was definitely the shit show that me and my wife enjoyed over the past few weekends. We definitely liked it for just how horrible and how bad it is. We spend most of our time laughing because of how stupid it is, and I think you can sort of enjoy it in that way. So let me know what you guys think about this, but I think this is probably the worst show. Honestly, now that I think about it, Blackbird was not as bad as that crap. I'm gonna actually up this rating and give it a 4, just because that's just how I gotta do it. Like the one thing Blackbird did better than this, Blackbird actually had a better villain, like a better yin to the yang sort of thing. Like, let's say the yin is Taron Egerton or the yang is Taron Egerton. The yin is this serial killer played by Paul Walter Hauser, who is definitely a better challenge. The duality is shown. In this, meh, whatever. This is trash. I could even give this a 2, honestly, but the only reason I'm giving this a 3 because of the excellent character development the show had. Every character was given better weight, and that's something this one had none of, right? This one had zero character development in that sense. this one totally did, totally nailed that. But the core of the story is an investigation about a murder and serial killer, and that's what really falls apart. So yeah, very interesting to think about these two stories because they're both about serial killers, but they're totally different in their own ways and unique. And I like that. I like that interesting, unique point and plot. But yeah, anyway, that's it from me. It's been a while since I made these reviews, and I'm sure I completely pissed everyone off with these reviews as well. But that's totally what I do here. So welcome to the channel if you guys are new, and please, I've never said this really. I think maybe once or twice, but yeah, please do subscribe because I think it's something that I gotta start telling people because a lot of you are not subscribed, and I think it's starting to get to me eventually. Um, so yeah, here we are, me showing off my new top film list, which I will be updating from time to time. And I think we'll probably go through this once I have at least 500 titles to talk about, because I did have way more than 1,000 in the past. So close to 2K, I think it's 1,700 or something. So yeah, I really gotta get this updated. But yeah, anyway, that's it from me for this one. Thanks so much for watching. It's been a while, and welcome back for those of you who have stuck around. It's nice to have you here again. And for those of you who did enjoy my reviews in the past, especially, it's it's been a long journey. So that's all I say. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. See you guys in the next one. Take care.